It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. You notice my toy selection behind me is kind of empty because it's still downstairs on the Ladybit set. My Big Daddy and my Rabbit and my Arbiter are all still downstairs. But normally this is where I go to the Patreon plug. I'm not going to do that today. Please stay tuned to the end of this video where I talk about the thing I am gonna plug with stuff. Please stay tuned. I'm gonna get to the feedback, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys heard me out on this initiative. It would mean a lot. Thanks. Okay, so This was a learning experience in a lot of ways, because some of the comments were, people got really passionate about things I considered throwaway lines, like being able to play Doom with only a one button mouse. That's how I played Doom. And it is established that the reason Halo caught is that it sacrificed the precision aiming you can get with keyboard and mouse, which is what made a lot of people say you can never do first-person shooter on console because you don't have that one-to-one aiming on a mouse. Halo was designed to be a fun experience that was more about more run than gun, and that grenade single shoot, even if you did it on a mouse, it wouldn't be right click, or that wouldn't be intuitive. It was left hand, right hand. It was a subtly brilliant bit of game design, which it's kind of interesting because when you play Call of Duty, it functions slightly differently because it makes sense for Call of Duty after you've played for a while. But that big trigger was a big element of why people took to Halo. Focus, camera. God, what's going on? This is annoying. Okay. Why people took to Halo on the Xbox. It did feel more intuitive for a lot of people, even though the precision wasn't there. And that was the main point. But people were like, no, 2 buttons, your argument is destroyed. And I'm like, first of all, this is an aside, not a debate. It's just sort of a, hey, this is why Halo was cool. And that was the only comment they left about the entire episode. Like a 10-second portion of a 31-minute show was spent on either that or the way I pronounced, I'm going to try to do this, Jack and Daxter. Accent kicks in again, and my tendency to slur things. It's a Canadian thing. We slur certain consonants. We slur certain vowels, like Toronto. We slur. So, but, people decided to focus on that instead of the main point. And it's one thing to mention it and then leave sort of a more general comment. I'm like, all right, fine, I can see where you're coming from. But when it comes to addressing comments, it's not fair to the people who actually had a more meaningful point to spend a lot of time on how many buttons were on a mouse in 1993 for the standard person. So please keep that in mind in future. I'm going to move on. The one thing I will appreciate, thank you to the person that told me I was saying Cory Barlog. It's going to take a bit. Cory Barlog's name wrong. I read that name over and over and over again. I've been saying his name wrong for years. I'd look at it and read Balrog. See where my head's at, right? Nerd. But I had no idea that his name was actually Barlog. And that's important. Getting a real life person's name right is important. Now, people get my name wrong all the time. I am the Southern Leanna, as in Lee-Ann. I am not Liana, but people say my name Liana all the time, and I think it sounds kind of pretentious. That's not what my mother intended when she named me Leanna. I almost got named Katrina, which would kind of be funny for a lot of reasons now. But, yeah, my name is not Liana. but I don't correct people. And it's been this way all my life. I get Leanne, Leon, Leanne, Leona. My name is Leanna. I don't correct people when they pronounce a vowel differently. That is an accent. That's all. But actually mispronouncing someone's name when you are actually inverting the letters, that is actually a mistake. And I cannot believe in all the busting down people have given me over Mario and Samus and all that stuff. No one told me I was saying Cory Barlog's name wrong. He's a real person. So thank you for that. I will make the correction going forward. But being named Balrog would be cool. But I want to get on to stuff that's more meaningful. I got a lot of messages about how people really enjoyed these historical retrospectives, and that was interesting to me. I expected these episodes to kind of be less popular. I was expecting kind of them to give me a break during the summer months when things get busier, but people seem to really enjoy them. And some people are saying they even want more historical retrospective stuff. So I will keep that in mind for future series. The graphic stuff, because I have to make all those numbers and stuff, I think maybe if I could get a show that was just about, 10 things here, 10 things there, then I could use the same, get them done up nice, do a proper bed, all that stuff, not the quick and dirty stuff I did. But if I could do that and actually make it a series, that would be worth doing. Lists are super easy to write. And I didn't have to worry about the wardrobe changes shooting, which is a good thing, because, oh my God, the heat lately. You may have noticed that I was swaying like this during the recording. And that's because I was really struggling with feeling kind of faint, feeling like I was going to pass out. It was very hot, even in the basement of our house when we shot that. Editing it was not the easiest thing either. So I got through it, but some of those imprecisions in pronunciation and things like that, I know it's because of that. Not Barlog versus Balrog. That was just a mistake. But some of that stuff was that all through it, I noticed myself like slurring and stuff like that just because it was so hot. Nothing for it, had to get it done. But man, this heat is brutal. Like 33 people have died in Quebec. Or as Americans say, Quebec. And we don't bust you down for that either. Just kidding. Also, just kidding about The Sims. God, some people got freaking annoyed at me. That's a runner joke for the series. I actually don't like The Sims. But there are multiple game series I don't like. I've talked before about how I'm not the biggest fan of Grand Theft Auto games as a rule, though I still find the Hot Coffee mod freaking hilarious. I just find the GTA games slow. That is hugely different from thinking they rot minds and shouldn't exist. But The Sims is a joke. And I thought it was kind of funny because in this episode, like, The Sims freaking owned me. Of all the episodes for people to get upset about, this surprised me. And I can't really take it seriously because other people thought it was hilarious, and that was the point. It was supposed to be like an irrational, over-the-top hatred of all things Sim. And then, at the end, they won. But I think some people comment before they're finished watching the episode. Do that at your own peril, because there are narratives to episodes, even though it's infotainment. There's sort of a story every episode. But people have said, why do you hate The Sims? Why do you hate The Sims? I got into it, and some person put this in the comments. It's episode 3, I believe, that I actually get into why I don't like The Sims. It is in a humorous way, but it is true that just, I don't see the point of playing a game where you cook and clean and take a shit. I do that in the real world. I don't want to watch someone taking a shit either. That's not my kink. So I really don't understand what the fun is. I just kind of feel like whenever I'm playing The Sims, I constantly in the back of my mind, yeah, you should really repaint the den and the wallpaper and the upstairs, guest bedroom is peeling, and it's just like, wow, I'm a completely inferior homeowner. I'm going to get on this. That's how I feel playing The Sims. Whereas, I can't slay demons in real life. I can't, save the world from hostile aliens in real life. And part of the thing I like about games is I get to do things I don't do in real life. So yeah, but I don't understand why anybody would be mad about something that's obviously a joke. Doing the diva stomp off is something I've never actually done for real. Yeah, moving on. I just thought it was kind of funny that of all shows, people were mad. People asked about, I want to get the exact wording. Here it is. One thing before I get to this, and this is sort of the main question, it's going to take a while, which is why I'm leaving it last. People mentioned the 18% of people played as FemShep. That's it. I was surprised it was that low too. And apparently the reason was a lot of people who played the game because of the marketing weren't used to character customization. They saw it as sort of a shooter because Mass Effect was sort of the action shooter franchise. It was designed to draw in people who don't play RPGs. And I knew some people who tried Mass Effect and they were like, too much talking, not enough shooting. So I think the marketing on Mass Effect was somewhat ineffective. But FemShep didn't actually have a default appearance until Mass Effect 3, which was a year after the 18% statistic came out. And so people, I guess, from what I understand, people they wanted to play as a prepackaged hero. They want to be the guy on the box. And they didn't even know that you could toggle genders because they just, okay, that's my character. Here's his stats. Get into the game. They didn't play with the customization tools at all. So they didn't know it was an option to toggle the gender of the character, which I thought was really interesting. And it's easy to sort of weep for humanity. But one of the things I've learned a lot with playing games with my husband is a lot of the things that I take for granted playing games all my life, he finds foreign. He gets into certain scenarios and doesn't know what to do. And that's been a real learning experience. We're playing through A Way Out right now, that co-op experience. It's basically Prison Break the game. It's funny. We're like binge watching Prison Break the series and playing A Way Out. It's super fun. But A Way Out does a really good job with pairing a more experienced player with a less experienced player because you can sort of talk the other person through what they need to do. And the thing I like about that is that it actually passes on knowledge on the visual language and the input language of video games to other people, which I wish they made more games like that because that's a co-op experience I can get behind, not this expanded, too vast for my liking Anthem type thing. I like these sort of couch co-op experiences where it's not stuff's blowing up everywhere. You can actually take the time and help someone through it at a more reasonable pace for that sort of thing. So yeah, if you like co-op and you've got somebody who's a little less experienced with games that aren't shooters, I'd recommend that one. It's been a lot of fun so far. But that's sort of, the 18%. So now I'm going to get to, somebody asked, and a bunch of people hit the thumbs up button on this. They said, I said that Assassin's Creed understood itself as a video game. Could I explain that? So can I explain that on Feedback Friday? They want to know what I meant. This is kind of heady. But you guys know one of my stump speeches is games are not TV shows. Games are not movies. Games are games. And a lot of games at that time that Assassin's Creed came out, they were trying to be cinematic, meaning they were trying to be interactive movies. And I just felt like there was something missing from that experience compared to, the games I'd played when I was younger that were, these straight up sort of adventure titles. Like, I talk ad nauseum about Sierra games because I love them. Those parser based games were so cool. But but also arcade games. Arcade games were much more game. They had rules and they had a playing field, and it was all about being as good as you can within the rules. And even the adventure games, the Sierra games, the mechanics were forefront. It wasn't, let's have 12-minute cutscenes so we can go, ooh, shiny graphics, and you kind of walk around holding down the trigger while auto aim like mows down all the enemies. And that's how I felt games were going when I got into the 2000s. They wanted people to feel like they were doing a lot. I mentioned BioShock had absolutely no difficulty because they were sort of toying with that idea of game deaths not meaning very much. Okay, so you've tackled this philosophical problem, Ken Levine, but there's no challenge to your game anymore. What's the point in that? With Assassin's Creed and the idea of the Animus Project, and they refine this more and more to the point that they decided, I think, they didn't need Desmond anymore, because it was sort of like you were playing a guy who was essentially playing a video game. So it was this story within a story thing, and it led to this, what it did was allowed them to explain the sci-fi elements, but also sort of, I really miss the overarching meta story in the Assassin's Creed games. They've backgrounded them, probably because people are freaking lost. But the idea of you're not actually changing anything that happens in history. You are going back and trying to replicate the events to find out what happened. And that's basically speaking to the illusion of choice that becomes this issue in game design. The idea of, is it really a choice? Does the player really have agency? And I'm telegraphing Lady Bits episode 10, which is about character agency. But does a player truly have agency, or is it just the illusion of choice? Is it the illusion of agency? You feel like you're making a decision, but really it doesn't matter. You're on a linear story track with diversions that are relatively meaningless in terms of narrative. And a lot of people believe that offering choice in a story is actually just offering the illusion of choice. And I thought, well, Assassin's Creed solved that problem by making it really clear that all this stuff's already happened. You can't control it. All they're doing is having him run through it again to basically find out the end of the story to get the apple of Eden, the piece of Eden in the games. But for the player, I mean, that's what it is. You play these things, the various, button prompts and inputs you do have meaning by the story and the characters and the game world and everything like that. And I was like, wow, this is really clever. And I just kind of like the idea too that they made like being mixed race a superpower too. That has nothing to do with the video game, but I thought that was sort of a cool thing that they did. But in terms of a game, that's what I meant, that they sort of, I mean, they're very violent games. And especially when you get into Assassin's Creed 2 and like the multiple eye stabs sort of thing, they are very violent. It was a violent time. But that's what I liked about it as well. It contextualizes the violence of, you're not going through and slaughtering a bunch of people that otherwise wouldn't have been slaughtered. You're actually just, it's already happened. These people are already long dead. You're after the information. And the other thing I thought was sort of cool about the whole Animus desynchronization thing, or 100% synchronization mechanic, was the fact that it actually explained the optional side quest mechanic as it went on. Like, yeah, you're basically following him around and doing what he did. And that's how you get objectives, because you sort of know, okay, he did this at this point. What did he see? And that's sort of how game design works. Like, I don't know if this is making any sense because it's very, very philosophical, but they really did solve not just some of these philosophical issues about game deaths and about side quests and about how powerful to make your character and all that stuff, but they also sort of sidestepped a lot of the criticisms of games at the time by having that story within a story past present mechanic. And I thought that was a really, really, really clever way to make a exciting, beautiful, large scope, brutally violent game and still kind of have a social conscience, you know, kind of, because we didn't have the information we have on video game violence back then. So they were sort of socially responsible without, you know, nerfing it. But they also did these really cool like game design things that made me realize like, yeah, games don't have to be interactive movies. They don't have to be. Sometimes they are, and it works. I mean, the Uncharted games are fun. But it was just this really cool, rich sci-fi, like meaningful experience. And it was a combination of things I'd never quite seen before. And I said in the show that Ubisoft has this tendency to take crazy risks in their games. And that's part of the reason that they're so broken a lot of the time, you know, that janky, half broken Ubisoft kind of way. And I say that with a great deal of affection because I want them to take those risks. I want them to swing for the fences. And I understand that every so often we're going to get a game like Unity that had ridiculous load screens and some graphics issues. Unity actually wasn't a bad game. I really enjoyed Unity, but the load screens were long. But that was because they were doing in part like some really cool things with like crowd mechanics that, you know, a lot of those big Ubisoft games like Watch Dogs 2, I really recommend Watch Dogs 2 for people for very similar reasons. It's got cutting social satire in it in places. But, you know, those crowd mechanics, those very realistic feeling crowds and, you know, changing up the way the character moves around, especially moves vertically. They didn't have to break that. They could have stayed kind of old and dated. But they knew they had to sort of future-proof the franchise. So they took the hit. They did the best they could. They worked it out later. And I give them credit for that. I really give them credit for taking risks and sometimes it not working instead of playing it super safe. And, you know, whenever it's, oh, Call of Duty 1 again, now with Night. I'm like, that's not really a risk. That, I mean, yeah, they sell a gazillion copies, but, you know, I'm not here to be an advocate for a video game company's balance sheet. I'm here to look at interesting things that have been done in games and that feel kind of like a risk and, you know, rewarding that because a lot of people who review games don't. And I mean, sometimes, like, I think sometimes sort of glitches in games can be sort of affectionate. I think that the nuisance level bugs in Bethesda games are inexcusably bad. But something like, you know, the way Roach the horse in The Witcher 3 defies gravity, but like standing on tents and things like that. And it's just a bug, but it's kind of a funny bug. Like certain things like that, they like, yeah, it's a mistake, but it added character. And then the fact they just sort of embraced it and had like that Gwent card that had like Roach standing on a roof. I thought that was really cute. And you know, it's sort of like, all right, like if you're going to be ambitious with what you're making, if you're going to give people tons of content, not everything's going to be perfect. And you sort of have to embrace that, kind of like doing a 12 episode series on time, fully scripted by myself, practically. Mistakes are going to happen, like mispronounced names. And you sort of have to embrace that. And it's kind of hard when people only focus on that and they don't see the good. And so it's funny because I used to be all about like BioWare. I thought they made really interesting, like great story games, and that hasn't been true in a really long time. And I've my heart sort of moved over to Ubisoft in that way. And the way they make these strangely profound experiences. Like, Far Cry 3 is another game that's like that. Even Far Cry 4 does some really interesting things, even though I thought the main narratives within the game were kind of bland in that case. I think the journey in 5 was more fun. But Far Cry 3, they had these big, bold characters and all this exploration, this sort of sandboxy, but then there was still cohesion. And you only get that if you really understand a game as a game and not, oh, we're going to make a movie with player control inputs for the action sequences. That was, I didn't get into this too much in the show, but that was where I kind of felt like Amy Hennig's Uncharted understood games as games much more than Uncharted 4 did. I found Uncharted 4 actually kind of bland and boring. Uncharted 2 is my favorite Uncharted game, but even 3 had some cool things about it. But, Uncharted 2, she sort of knew, oh, we're going to put the player through these long wall climbing things. So she put in dialogue there where, Nate and the guy played by Steve Valentine, they were like trash talking people and stuff like that. So the experience is still fun. Like, it's a beat. It's not, oh, we're going to teach you how to wall climb now, and that's all we're going to do. So instead of putting that little bit of character into cutscenes, she put them integrated with the gameplay, and it became stronger as a result. Whereas, I don't know, I just didn't, to have something that felt like a tutorial level at the end of a game just felt like such a letdown in Uncharted 4. In a movie, that's called a denouement. And it's a totally valid way of doing it. But it left me feeling like this strange lack of accomplishment in a video game. And it's because they were trying to make a point of, oh, they had I won't spoil it, but it just, they put the narrative above a satisfying game design experience instead of making it mesh together. And I think that Ubisoft, for all the things they mess up, I think they integrate gameplay and story very, very well as a company. I've been consistently impressed with how actual game design informs the narrative, and then the narrative informs the game design choices I make. And I know this is esoteric and really hard to explain. I hope I was it all clear with that. So I just want to show you that thing I promised off the top. This is going on right now. It's an Indiegogo campaign for a service called, I'll switch over, the FU Network. Yes, Canadians will know who Ed the Sock is. Some Americans will know from our G4 days. But yeah, we're doing, you may call it an MCN, but it's a channel online that sort of brings back what we call classic Much Music style. Americans, you guys don't know what that means. What it basically means is not shooting things quick, but like authentic and entertaining and kind of like vlogs. I mean, Much Music was doing kind of what we called flow for Much Music, meaning there were just little interstitials between the music videos, and we talked and we did something really fun, and it didn't take a long time. It was immediate, and it was really focused on great personalities, and that drove it instead of spending a lot of money or a ton of whiz-bang effects and all that stuff. It was just really authentic content. And I don't know if it's up yet. Probably not. But I'm going to be doing, it's not up, but I'm going to be doing the video game content. I'm calling myself the program director of geek content it's a title I completely made up. We didn't discuss this, but I'm going to be doing like the gaming content and some other content, but mainly gaming stuff and like nerd stuff, movie stuff like that on the site. But one of the things I'm doing, and I'm really, really excited about, is that everybody who reviews games or covers games for our various initiatives, and some of them will be written. We're just figuring out the format there, but we will be doing some written articles as well. But everybody who does that is going to have to go through a webinar series that's basically my game coverage boot camp based on my experience in the industry about how to review games, how to conduct a proper interview, how to take feedback online, how to handle criticism, how to handle online harassment if you know you're going to encounter it, because we all do. And notice I didn't just say women, it's everybody. But, you know, telling the difference between criticism and harassment and where to put your own opinion in and when it's not about your opinion, and just sort of a training program. So when you come for gaming content on the FU network, you know that there's a basic standard that everybody has gone through and learned and agreed to, and that we can actually uphold. And it's not going to be this, oh, but we started a conversation kind of thing. It's going to be fun forward, kind of like what I do here. But I really feel, you know, because I am getting older, it's time to start training people. It's time to start training the next generation of people who have interesting and valid opinions to actually have the tools to organize those opinions in a way that doesn't suck. And so I am basically what I'm doing is I'm doing the Something Awful format that everybody's got to pay like a nominal fee. If you back the Indiegogo, you get it free. You don't have to pay the additional, I think I said like $25 and up or something like that. That hasn't been updated yet, but it will soon. If you get access to the webinars free if you back at that level or higher. If you're interested, if you write for another site and want to engage with the content because you want training, you've never had it, that's there too. I just don't want it to be available to absolutely anyone. Just because then people don't appreciate it. You know, if you want to be serious about this stuff, you're going to be serious. I don't want people taking my stuff and kind of messing it up. So it's going to be a nominal fee, but like I said, if you back it, you don't have to worry about that. You can just get it free. So if you are at all interested in writing about video games or covering games or even understanding video games for yourself better, like the way the professionals do it, get involved now, get the extra value of, you know, being able to say you backed it, but then, you know, you get the content for free and you can watch it. Because one of the things I have heard from developers over and over and over again is that they wish people understood how games are made and you know, what goes into games more. And a lot of people end up as game reviewers because they just like games and they just start writing, or they have a friend who lets them write for their website. They've had no real training. And while webinars and like a little test at the end are not the same as, you know, 4 years of journalism school, at least it's something, right? And if the preliminary, I think it's like 8 to 10 little videos, go well, then I can do like masterclass stuff. I can elaborate, but at least it's a start. We are getting some standards. And I admit part of the reason I've done this is by talking to you guys and hearing the real disappointment about how people in games journalism are not listening to your ethical concerns because it got mired up in all that other mess. Well, this is my way of letting people know that I have heard you and I understand that, you know, it's important to be able to trust that people are writing about games and covering games for nothing but a love of games, not to overtly benefit their friends or to engage in like massive conflict of interests or to pursue their own social agendas or anything like that. I mean, we all have things we care about, right? But it's possible to do proper op-ed that's labeled as op-ed and not have that creep into your game reviews in a way that doesn't make sense. So I hope you like what you see there. Again, it's Ed the Sock's FU network. You can Google that. I will put the link in the description box beneath this video. But yeah, I got another project, for anybody who knows, in the hopper as well, like more like Lady Bits. But that's gonna probably have to wait for the spring to be funded. So this is like my next thing I'll be working on. And it is a bit of giving back, and it is, like I said, I hope at the very least you feel heard because of this, and that your concerns, at least by me, are being heard and taken seriously. And I'm doing what I can to sort of be inclusive and be a big tent and kind of acknowledge that it's not the perspective you come from. It's, are you adhering to a proper framework? It's not the what, it's the how. And I really do believe that. I think that a lot of different opinions have a place, and we don't have enough diversity of opinion in gaming. Because, anyway, discussion for another time. I'm going to let you guys get to your weekend. I am going to be out in Oshawa tonight for a fundraiser party for the Indiegogo. So if you're out that way, come out and join us. Check out Ed's Twitter feed for it. It's the Brew Wizards Gaming Cafe or something like that. It's a board game, one of those board game places that has beer. So we'll see you there if you can make it. Otherwise, I will see you guys on Monday. Thanks for watching.